saintliness. The title of tonight's talk is When the Saints Come Marching Home. Thank you all very much for being here. Welcome to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Govindas. So what is a saint? How many of you have heard? We've all heard the word saint. What is a saint? Growing up, the first thing that always pops into my mind when I think of a saint is actually Santa Claus. Because he's Saint Nick, and so that's what comes into my mind. Of course, I grew up Catholic, so there's other saints that come up, but then, predominantly when I think of saint, the first thing that image is Santa Claus. So whether Santa Claus is a saint or not is to be determined, but you can figure that out for yourself. So the definition of a saint in the dictionary is a holy person or a virtuous person, a distinguished characteristics. That's the definition of a saint. And in Sanskrit, Srila Prabhupada translates the word saint into the word sadhu. This word sadhu is the Sanskrit word for saint. So we want to associate with sadhus. So holiness, what makes a person a saint? What makes a person holy? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. We all need saints. Everybody needs a saint, because true saints in their lives, if someone is fortunate enough to meet saints, to meet sadhus, then their lives are transformed. A true saint can seriously transform a life. It says that one should learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service to him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge of you because they've seen the truth. They've had what's called tattva darshan. They can see the truth. And the result of meeting such a person and learning from a person is that having obtained such real knowledge, real realized soul, one can see the Supreme Lord in everybody's heart, which is a beautiful state of consciousness, to have darshan, or to be able to see that the Lord, Krishna, is in everybody's heart, and therefore feel love for every living being. So a true saint, if you actually meet one, it will transform your life. We were hearing from different people earlier the week about different religions, and someone was speaking about religions of karma and religions of grace. It was a very prominent Catholic bishop speaking, and he was uninformed about what Hindus or people who follow the Vedas actually believe, but needless to say, some of his points he made were valid to talk about. Maybe you might have heard of him. He's a pretty big figure, very intelligent, spiritualist. But he was speaking of religions of grace and religions of karma, and he was stating that the Vedas, the Vedic religions, are considered a religion of karma, and that Christianity is considered a religion of grace, which is, like I said, a misinformed statement. So a religion of karma is what you do affects where you will go, affects your consciousness, affects your life, affects your spiritual progress. And a religion of grace is that by attracting the grace of the Lord, one can overcome all types of sinful reactions or bad karma or negative results to their actions. So the truth is that the Krishna consciousness movement and the belief that is propounded in the Holy Vedas is not a religion of karma nor a religion of grace. It's both. It's a synthesis of the two. Both have to be there. So we are not believers in the fact that karma is everything. That's called karma mimamsa, that everything is karma. We don't believe this, because we believe that there are other factors that can intervene on our behalf, namely divine beings, great saints, sages, and of course the Supreme Lord. So everybody's heard of the concept of karma, I'm assuming. It means what you do, you're going to get some result. As you sow, so shall you reap. This is the concept of karma. And what goes around comes around, so forth. So we have to transcend this karma. We have to come to a place of spiritual realization where we're beyond karma, beyond reaction. This is the nature of spirituality. When one is actually spiritual, they're going beyond these types of reactions, this karmic activity. So we want to understand a saintly person that will transform our lives, help us come to this state by their fruits. It's said that in the Bible, you will know them by their fruits. So what are the fruits of the Spirit? Paul talks about that, humility and so forth. So there are certain characteristics that a saintly person has within them that are indicators that they are a saintly person, but that's not everything in itself. So before we begin kind of diving really deep into this, we should understand first and foremost that God is the source of everything. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's the source of everything. Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvapavartate, that everything emanates from me. I'm the source of everything. So we should understand that. So that means that happiness, spiritual realization, knowledge, love, all of the things that you're innately looking for are coming from Krishna. So therefore, rather than seek these things in the temporal material world, an intelligent person begins to understand that they should seek happiness in God. Confirmed. Kirtanya would say. They should seek happiness in God. That God is the ultimate state of happiness. Relationship with God, at that stage, he will become completely happy or completely full of love. He'll have everything he's ever been looking for, because ultimately, the source of everything contains everything, and therefore, we can have the highest amount of love, the highest amount of happiness, the highest amount of joy, only in contact with that Supreme Being. But due to material illusion, we've forgotten that state of consciousness. We've become covered over by the material energy, which is a sort of illusion. In Sanskrit, it's called Maya, which means that which is not. It means we're not able to see the love that's all around us. We're actually drowning in an ocean of love and happiness. Sat Chidananda, they have the same nature as God. And so if we're functioning properly, we should be Sat Chidananda, we should be eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. This is the state of being of someone who is actually spiritually advanced. They live their lives with a thrill at every step. Srila Prabhupada says that in one purport, that life is like a thrill at every step for someone who's Krishna conscious, someone who has this relationship with the source of love, the source of beauty. So a saintly person is not defined just by their good deeds alone. This is not enough to qualify one as a saint. So therefore, we're not a religion of karma, because there has to be some other factor involved. If good deeds alone are what qualifies one as a saint, then there's a lot of saints out there, but they're not really transforming people's lives. Transforming people's lives is not a matter of action, it's a matter of character. We can see many, many times in our life, if you think about people who've really touched your life, majority of the time it's not what they did, it's not even what they said, it's most of the time how they made you feel. And for those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, when you remember a devotee who's seriously transformed your life or who's touched you in a very deep and profound way, you can think back. Was it the amount of shlokas they knew? Was it the amount of verses or philosophy they propounded on? Was it the way they led kirtan or the way they played the drum, or was it their character? And 95% of the time, it's the character of some person that changes lives. It has nothing to do with what we know or how we, everything to do with the character of who we really are and how this process is actually working to create a saint. And so we're not simply just working to be on the platform of good deeds, although good deeds are necessary for one to be a saint. So it's a matter of both. So we should understand that a true saint is someone who lives for God, because like we said, the definition of a saint in the beginning, dictionary definition, is a holy person. So a saint is someone who lives for God. Holiness is coming from beyond. Holiness is something that is bestowed upon someone. It's a type of spirituality, a type of goodness that is beyond this world. That's what makes a person holy. And so a saint lives for Krishna. He lives for God. This is another important thing to understand. Bhajate mam ananyabhak, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that such a person is undeviatingly devoted to God. They have bhajate mam ananyabhak. And because they're always living for Krishna, they're always detached because they have love. When someone is in love, they become detached from so many other things. People will do crazy things for love. They'll do all kinds of wild things. So the object of our love is very important. You can say even that the object of your love determines the quality of your life. Because if you love something that is innately terrible for you or going to cause very much bad reactions, it's going to have a negative effect on your life, but you love it, you're going to suffer. You'll have to suffer. So the beauty of Krishna consciousness, or the genius of someone who's actually spiritually advanced, is that they can figure out how to love everybody and everything while at the same time being detached. Such a person is very powerful. Such a person can change everybody's life they meet. It's kind of like the cheat code, you can say. How do I love everything while at the same time not being entangled by everything? Because we find that, love is very wonderful. Everybody wants it, but there's so much trouble. We find that many, many times the greatest pain we experience in our life comes from the people we love. Is that not a fact? And the more you love them, the more potential they have to hurt you. Or the things we love. We love certain things, and therefore, because we love them, because we're attached to them, we give them the power to control us. And if they're not spiritual things or spiritual people, we end up with some pretty bad bruises, some pretty broken hearts, or with worse problems, depending on the quality of what thing we're attached to. But a saint, a true saintly person, he's living in a relationship with Krishna. He's living in a relationship with God. He's not attached to dry belief systems and religions. He has a living relationship with the Lord, a relationship with the Lord that he's experiencing, and that all those who come in contact with him enter into that experience, and they become uplifted by such an experience. So we have to understand that in this world, there's many temporary things. In fact, everything in this world is pretty much temporary. It has a beginning and it has an end. Therefore, it doesn't give one real satisfaction. Yehi samsparsha jaboga dukkha yoniya evate aryatamanta konteo natesho ramate buddha. Krishna is explaining in this verse. This is the fifth chapter, 21st verse of the Bhagavad Gita. He's explaining that a wise person does not delight in the pleasures of the senses because they have a beginning and they have an end. Rather, a wise person, a saintly person, is experiencing a higher type of pleasure, a transcendental pleasure beyond the senses. Because if our happiness is based on the senses, based on the mind, we can never have sustainable happiness. And we can never have sustainable relationships. Which, when you really cut away the chaff of everything, a truly enlightened person is able to form and maintain relationships. That's the basis of it all. When you see a really enlightened person, they're able to form and maintain relationships. They don't quarrel with people. They're peaceful. They could quarrel, but generally they're peaceful. Generally, they have an ability to maintain relationships and to form them, to touch the people they meet. So there are some verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, spoken by Krishna in the form of Lord Kapila Dev, that I would like to read. Beautiful verses, and we're going to explore them and speak a little about them to understand what is a saint. So Lord Kapila Dev, Krishna, is saying in verse 3, chapter 25, text 20, every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. So Lord Kapila Dev is saying that a learned person, once again, a wise man, he understands that when one is attached to material things, fame, profit, adoration, distinction, and sense gratification, when one is attached to such things as the source of their happiness, then they become entangled in all kinds of difficulties. Their minds are not peaceful because they're entangled in these desires. But that same attachment, when applied to a self-realized devotee, opens the doors of liberation. So that very same attachment which we're giving to sense gratification, to our concocted ideas of what will make us happy, when it is applied to the saints, when one is attached to serving saintly people, and to having loving relationships with spiritually advanced beings, and ultimately to the Supreme Lord, one can become free from entanglement and achieve lasting peace. In other words, liberation is opened for them. And the next verse is very, very famous, so I'll sing the Sanskrit for you. It's very beautiful. Tatikshava karunaka surida sarvadehinam ajata shatrava shanta sarava sarabhushana. This is a very, very nice verse. This is describing the symptoms of such a saintly person. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all of his characteristics are sublime. This is a very, very beautiful statement, that a real sadhu, a real saintly person, he is tolerant. We have to be tolerant. There's so many challenges in our lives, but a saintly person does not waver in his determination to render service to God and to all living entities. A true saintly person is not disturbed by the activities of others or the activities of the material world. He's not disturbed by the election. He's not disturbed by the state of affairs in various countries or in this country. Tolerant. And therefore, he's fixed on his goal, to serving God and treating love and mercy to all he meets. He's friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He's peaceful. He abides in the scriptures, and all of his characteristics are sublime. You ever meet a person who's... It's really, really sweet when you meet such a person. They're very, very beautiful. They're very powerful. These are the symptoms of a true saint. So we can think, well, what if I start cultivating these symptoms? Will I be a saint? One of those qualities is he abides in the scriptures, meaning you have to learn the science of self-realization to really be a saint. You have to really understand this bhakti yoga process. Next verse. Actually, we're going to skip ahead and go to text 23, skipping one verse. Engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. So this is very, very beautiful. This is the process that we can use and apply in our lives to actually come to this level of saintliness. This beautiful characteristics that were previously described will manifest in our body, will manifest in our heart, will manifest in our mind if we follow the process which is being described here, which is what we do here at this temple every day. Chanting and hearing about God. So the quality of what you put in your ears determines the quality of your life. It's very important to understand that if you're listening to all kinds of nonsense, if you're listening to degraded content, if you're listening to negativity, then you're going to become negative. You're going to become angry. You're going to become upset. You're going to become sad. All these things that you don't want will be present in you. But if you listen to higher topics, you'll become elevated. And if you listen to the supreme topic, which is this transcendental knowledge concerning the personality of Godhead, if you listen and understand this science, then you will become eternally happy, eternally joyful, eternally full of love. This is the nature of this process. So we want to hear about God, meaning we want to hear the science of God. We want to hear the qualities of God. We want to come in contact with this transcendental knowledge and become elevated by it. And you do not suffer the material miseries because they're always filled with thoughts of Krishna, Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's activities. They're not suffering because they're existing in a different world simultaneously to this world. This world is happening, but the sadhus or the saintly people, they have a factual experience of a transcendental realm, a transcendental realization. They have a factual experience of this, and therefore they're living in a higher dimension. Whatever's happening here, they understand is ephemeral. It's only temporary. But what's happening in their heart, in their actual experiential relationship with God, that is eternal. A nice example given is that a sadhu, he's very deep, concerned with shallow topics, just like a fish swimming in the water. When it is close to the surface of the water, the eagle or the hawk or the falcon can very easily tear it out of the water and disturb it. But when that fish goes deep into the ocean, nothing can disturb it. It becomes fixed. It becomes safe from all the things on the top of the water. So in the same way, when someone is deep in their Krishna consciousness, they are fixed. They are happy. They're not disturbed by the ephemeral activities of this world. And next verse. O mother, this is the Lord Krishna speaking to his mother. O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious attachment. So this is the Lord saying you must seek association with holy people. If you seek association with holy people, then the effects of material life, the effects of this world, which is misery, which is bringing us down, are counteracted. So a holy person, a real holy person, will transform your life. They'll uplift you. And last verse, and I want to tell a quick story. Nice verse here. I'll sing it in Sanskrit too. It's very beautiful. Satam prasangam mama virya sambiro bevanti ritkarna rasayana kata tajjosanaras vapavarga vartmadi shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishyati. So the Lord is saying, in the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. So in association with saintly people, in this satsang, in association with those who are cultivating higher knowledge, one develops ratir, he develops attachment to God. He develops shraddha, he develops faith in God. That faith makes you by whatever's happening. You become like a rock because you have faith that Krishna is in control. And I'm a devotee of Krishna, I have nothing to worry about. And therefore you can become happy. You develop shraddha, ratir, bhaktir, you develop love. Love for Krishna. Love for Krishna means you develop love for every living entity. You cannot love every living entity. You cannot develop these qualities of a saintly person unless you become attached to Krishna. Unless you become attached to God, you can't love everybody unconditionally like God does. It's just, this is the way it works. This is scientific. You can't water a tree by the leaves. You have to water a tree by the root. And therefore, when you love God, the root of everything, you love everything. This is natural. Once they asked Srila Prabhupada, they said, Srila Prabhupada, everybody loves you. Prabhupada said, that's because I love everybody. But first and foremost, Srila Prabhupada was very much in love with Krishna. Spoke about. So, in kind of conclusion, association is everything in spiritual life. If you want to advance spiritually, you need to associate with those who are factually spiritually advanced. You need to learn the science. This is not a sentimental movement. It's not a religious movement. It's not like any other thing you may have come across out there. This is the factual science of self-realization coming from the personality of Godhead, Krishna. And by following it, you'll get the result. A plus B equals C in all circumstances at all times. So I want to just tell a quick story. Raj went over on the kirtan for a little bit, so I'm going to go 2 minutes over too. And it's my last talk, so I can pull that card out. I can go a little bit over. So there's a nice story about the association of saintly persons. And one of our main scriptures, the Srimad Bhagavatam, deals a lot with one particularly great saint known as Narada Muni. So Narada Muni is the prime example of association with saintly persons and associating with saintly persons. Narada Muni in his previous life was the son of a maidservant. He was a poor boy. He didn't have a father. His mom was a maid at an inn. And during the rainy season in India, which is called Chaturmas, the saintly people generally stay in one place because they can't travel. It becomes dangerous. So these great saintly people, they stopped at this inn. And of course, the mother was serving them as the maidservant. But the child, Narada Muni, he became attached to their association and began to hear from them transcendental knowledge. And he actually ate some of their remnants in great humility. And they left, and his mother died. His mother was bitten by a snake. And so Narada Muni, having achieved this transcendental knowledge, understood that his mother was eternal, that he wasn't this body, and that she wasn't this body, and that this world is temporary. So at 5 years old, he wandered out into the forest with complete faith in God and wandered across the countryside, meditating and chanting about the personality of Godhead, only to at a certain point achieve darshan of the Lord in his heart and see God face to face, when he was told that he will not see God again in this lifetime, but in his next life he will become very advanced and associate with the Lord. And so Narada Muni continued this life, practicing and cultivating Krishna consciousness. In his next life, he appeared at the beginning of creation in a spiritual body as a great devotee of the Lord and is the guru of many, many other great devotees. So Narada Muni's association was so powerful that it changed the lives of demons, it changed the lives of great monsters, so many things, animals, and everything you can imagine. He was turning everybody he saw into a pure devotee, into a great saintly person. And the classic and prime example of this is there's one hunter, Mugari, who was not just a normal hunter, he was a very cruel hunter who used to not just kill animals, but he would actually shoot them in such a way that they would suffer, to enjoy watching them die. And so Narada Muni was wandering through the forest, all these animals that were half dead, suffering, and he was kind of disturbed. Who's doing this? And so then he came across the hunter, and the hunter said, please accept my obeisances. Actually, he was a little upset because Narada had run away some of the animals, but in the presence of such a great soul, he felt the need to be respectful. So he said, please accept my obeisances. How can I serve you? I can offer you some skins. And when he said, I don't want any skins. If you want to do anything for me, just try not to kill the animals halfway, kill them all the way. And he said, why do you do that anyways? And Mugari said, I enjoy watching them suffer and die. My father taught me, and I like it. Their screams give me great pleasure. And so Narada Muni said, yeah, if you just stop that, just go ahead and kill them all the way. I'd be pretty satisfied. But Narada Muni's presence and his saintliness and his purity was so intense that Mugari questioned, why? And he says, because in your next life, you'll have to suffer like that. And he began to think, does that mean that I'm going to have to die in my next life like an animal? Narada Muni said, yes. And he said, well, how can I stop this? So Narada Muni said, if you want to become free from this sinful activity, you have to surrender. He says, go home and break your bow. He says, how can I break my bow? If I break my bow, then I won't have a means to live. And he said, you have to have faith in God. Break your bow, plant a tulsi tree, and begin to chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And do that. And so he did that. He went home, he broke his bow. He told his wife, we're going to chant Hare Krishna now. And so they began chanting. And he found himself purified. People started to notice that, oh, look, Mugari's becoming a saint. He's not killing anything more. Well, we should offer him some food. He's not doing anything but chanting. Let's offer him food. So food was coming. Wealth was coming. He was detached. He just kept chanting. And finally, Narada Muni decided, I better go check back on Mugari. So Narada Muni came back, and he had his friend Parvat with him, Parvat Muni. And when Mugari saw his guru, Narada Muni, this great saintly person, he began to cry, and he began to run at Narada toward him to pay his obeisances. But he was jumping up and down. And Parvat Muni said, what is he doing? And he realized that he's not stepping on any ants. He won't even step on an ant. Rather than running straight, he's dodging all the ants. And so Parvat Muni said, look, just by your association, this very sinful and evil hunter won't even kill an ant. And so this is the power of the association of saintly persons. And I'll end it with this. No one is perfect in this world. This is a faulted world, except for the great souls like Narada. Krishna is, of course, perfect. But if you develop Krishna Bhakti, Krishna says, Apichet Sudaracharo Bhajate Mamananyabhak. If you have this Bhajate Mananyabhak, even if you're Sudarachar, even if you commit the most terrible mistake, if you're devoted to God and you don't give up on this process, then Krishna says, Sadhareva Samantavyaha, then I consider you a saint. Because you're determined to become saintly, righteous, and achieve lasting peace. So by doing this bhakti yoga, which we're teaching here in the association of saintly people, you can achieve lasting peace. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any one minute question? Someone who has one burning 1 minute question? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.